Hey guys, welcome back. So today we got a GV70. It's a 2022 2.5 liter. As you can see there, the cluster is off. Um, Even though I'm switching this one, there's no indication in there. But we have an airbag light on there. So the customer states on this one is during the weekend, he put a six-pack beer on the passenger front seat, and it triggered the seat belt, and then he took out the beers, and then this happened, right? So we're gonna scan for codes. I'm guessing maybe there's some short on this passenger seat causing all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure. At least we know that the customer is honest, or he's telling the true story on what happened in the car, because some of those customers, even though they did something, they always tell us, while driving, just happen. They don't say anything prior why it happened like that. So yeah, I'm gonna do a full scan, and then let's say let's see what's the result on this one. It says here, lost communication with instrument panel. Okay, it's a CCAN. Could be it was a coincidence that we got a cluster failure, and then you know he just put the beer on the passenger seat. I don't know. So we got CAN signal error from the ABS. It's the ABS is telling us that there's a CAN signal error between him and the cluster. So all of this stuff are telling us that we got something wrong with our cluster. Okay, which is good. So now we're gonna go to our wiring diagram. Um, gonna do first for power and grounds. Check, the power feed going to that cluster, and we're gonna check our, you know, communication lines. So, I wonder how to remove this guy here. I think I remember I removed one cluster on these models, but oh man. I don't know. Did I remove the whole thing? I have to check the service information. I forgot. Um, yeah. So we're gonna check on how to remove this cluster, because we're gonna go to the component itself, the back of the cluster, and check our stuff there. But before that, I'm gonna go to the wiring diagram and see what fuse feeds this cluster. We'll see on how that wiring diagram works, and so that we can do our plan of attack on how to deal with this complaint, or how to deal with this problem. Okay, so our full system scan is done. Let's go for the active codes first. So most of our modules are all telling us that we got a problem with our cluster. If you can see here on the TPMS, we got channel failure for all four, because the customer used a steel wheels, has no there's no TPMS on it. So let's try clearing this code and see if these guys will turn back on. Okay, so cluster is still off. Okay, it didn't help that, so we're gonna go actuation test. I can go to my cluster if I have that option here. Where's the cluster? IBCU. Am I blind? Cluster. Oh, here we go. So I'm trying to communicate to the cluster. I guess it's not doing it. No. So we don't have any communication to the cluster. Let me go to the module itself, to the data. Let's see if it can do that. Okay, so right now our cluster doesn't really communicate at all. So let's go to the ETM first, to our wiring diagram. Let's look for the cluster. That's body electrical, instrument cluster, indicator and gauges. I think that's an 8-inch LCD. Okay, so we got cluster 10 amp. What else? We got module 14 10 amp, and then we got ground GM01, and then this is our communication line. So let me click this GM01. Where's this located? Okay, so that's on the airbag side, on this part here. Let's not go crazy there for now. So let's check the other pages. What else does it show us? Okay, nothing really there. Number 3. Okay, nothing there. So we're dealing with 2 fuses. Well, we'll check also this multimedia 20 amp, 25 amp, and 1 ground. But that ground, we're gonna go straight to the cluster at the back. Gonna check that location. Let's see the location. Okay, so there's one connector there at the back. That's what I know. So yeah, I'm gonna figure out how to remove this cluster. And before removing that, let's just quickly check our 10 amp fuse for the cluster, multimedia 25 amp, and a module 14 10 amp. Make sure the fuses are good, and then you can go straight to our cluster. I'll remove the cluster and let's do our checks there, and we'll see from there. Okay, so we're gonna be going to this fuse panel here, the driver lower kick panel. Got my test light. So we're gonna go for cluster 10 amp. So that's gonna be, let's check our test light first if everything works here. So I don't know if you guys see that my test light works properly. So I'm gonna go for a 10 amp fuse. That's gonna be hot in. How does it say? It says here hot in on or start. So ignition on. We'll see here 10 amp fuse. So we got one side of that fuse leg, other side of the fuse leg, which is good. Next will be our multimedia. So let me see, multimedia 25 amp, 1 2, that's good. And then the module 14. So module 14, where is that guy? 10 amp, it's there, right lower. Okay, so all 3 fuses, we got all power there by using our test light. So next is, I'm gonna check this before we go further. So instrument cluster, so it's a multimedia can. ICU, let's see here, ICU. Oh, that's at the back? No, I will not do that. So I'm gonna check our process on how to remove that cluster, and then we'll get back and do our testing there, and from there we can call what we need to fix this vehicle. Alright guys, so before I go crazy and remove all those panels on top, just for the heck of it, because we know that it could be too, maybe it's just a coincidence, right? So what I'm gonna do is, if I can access this big connector here on the seat, and maybe I'm just gonna remove that. Question is, can I access it? That's a big question. Oh man, can I access it? Okay, let me try this guy here. How can I remove here? Can I? No, that's tight. But you should be able to remove that. Oh well. So I'm gonna remove that connector there on this computer box, and then let's see if our cluster will work again before I remove everything there. So let me remove all those connectors and let's recheck our cluster. Alright guys, so I said earlier that I'm gonna access the seat and remove that. Maybe it will help, but there's too much work in that. I think I have to remove the whole seat just to, remove the connector, the main connector. So I didn't do that. I just went straight to our cluster. So I just gonna say a quick rundown on before we access the cluster. Is you're gonna remove the panel here, our vents, right? In here, on this side, you're gonna remove the glove box assembly, and you can remove this whole assembly here, so that you can access the screws for our vents. Because as you can see there, we got some, at least more than 30 screws in there. So yeah, so now I'm gonna remove the cluster, and then we can do some testing. And on our cluster, I forgot, so the top one, if you can have a magnetic screw, that will be good, because there's no, you can put your finger in there just to hold the screw. So now we're just gonna if I can just access the connector there and see. I don't want now. Okay, good. I'm just lower your steering column and pull it up so that more space here. Now all I want to do right now is, so I'm gonna remove this one connector here. I don't know if this is the ground Let's remove this guy here because we're gonna access the back of this harness here. So I unplug the whole connector. Just visual check there. Let's visually check this cluster. Okay, so there's no broken pin there, but I can see something in here. I don't know if it will show a close up or something, or my light is too bright. I can see some. Where my finger was, that area, I saw like a liquid thing there. I don't know if it's a glue or something. Can I use my flat screwdriver? I'm just gonna touch that and see what is that. Oh, it looks like a glue. Okay, maybe it's normal, I don't know. So now, let me put this aside first. And we're gonna access this connector. So I'm just removing this cover here. And now we can back probe it and see. So what we need is, let me go to our wiring diagram. So we need 39 and 40 for our 39 and 40. So it says here blue and black. So this one both power, and our number 1 is ground. So I guess this is our ground here. M06. Oh no, it's here. So I don't know what's this connector here for. So let me grab my meters and let's inspect this. Now I'm just gonna back probe on the ground. Right? What they always say is use the battery ground to have a good ground, right? Your base. So we'll never know. Maybe we have a bad ground here. And then let's plug this cluster back in. I hope I can reach it there. No, I have to push this. There's the connector. So I'm just looking for that connector in the cluster. Come on, man. Okay, plug in our bigger connector here. Oh, grab this thing off. Okay, so I just move you guys to have a better view on what I'm doing here at the back. So I'm just gonna plug that in, our ground, and this black cable here. Okay, so now, right now we got 12 volts. That's our red wire. So the red wire is, that's hot at all times. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna go to our number 39. So I'm gonna connect it without removing this connector. Okay, I think I'm plugged in there. I'm just gonna hold it. Then I'm gonna go ignition on. Oops, my wipers. Oh, okay. Oh. So that's pin 39 now, and I got 12 volts there. Yeah, so I'm gonna remove that. Next will be, let me just shut that off. We're gonna go to our, oh, so what happened now? Was just that unplug? Because right now, as you can see there, so as you can see there, our cluster is on now. It's working fine. I'm gonna ignition on. Yeah. Okay, so before I go back again and check our CAN network there, let's go back here. I'm gonna scan this again because we got a multiple what do you call that, CAN issues for the cluster. So by now, if everything is done here, everything should go in history. So before it was all active, since we can communicate now, we can see the cluster, and we should be able to see here. Last time we cannot go to that module itself, so I guess it was just maybe a fitment issue. That's why sometimes they always say that don't unplug things first, right? But on that case, I have really no choice because I have to remove that cover for that connector. So this switch failure, we don't have to worry about that because I remove our parking brake switch, this CAN network here for our panel, since we don't have that panel there. So I'm gonna let it run all this scanning and we'll get back. Okay, so while our scan tool is still running, looking for that, checking our codes, I'm gonna go and check our communication line here. They called it an MCAN, that's a multimedia CAN network. So I'm gonna go for black and yellow. This is our pin 32, 33. So I'm gonna go for black first. No connections. Oh, I'm in the wrong hole. I'm in the wrong hole. So right now I'm gonna just adjust this. So here's the black one, that's our CAN high, MCAN. So it's the same thing. It's running from 2.5 to 3.5, which is good. 2.5 to 4 volts. Right, so now I'm gonna go to the low side, which is the yellow one. Oops, what's wrong? I guess that's a yellow one. No. Okay, here's my CAN low. As you can see there, it's running from 2.5 to 1 volt. So we have good communication there. Well, since everything is working now, our cluster, we should expect that it's running good, and we got good communication there. So let's go back to the scan tool and let's see our codes. Alright guys, so our scan tool scanning is done. All these active codes is because I unplug all our modules, or let's say our switches. But if we're gonna go to the history, our all CAN network failure to the cluster, it went all to history, meaning I guess the computer is satisfied that he sees that cluster now I can see on our system here, if we can go to the instrument cluster. Yep, cluster. It says cluster here. It says good. He can communicate now. Let's go back to our cluster again. When checking the data in there, before we cannot go in there, right? So right now we can see there's a data in there, fuel pressure, odometer, right? Before we cannot do that. So there you go, guys. I know I thought we're gonna replace the cluster on this one, but yeah, so sometimes on these cars here, sometimes what I diagnose some cars usually is like when you unplug it, put it back on, it fixes. I don't know why. It could be a loose fitment on the connector, and yeah, so far at least right now it's working. So I'm just gonna go ignition on again. So as you can see there, our cluster is working now. Of course, I'm gonna go for a drive and see if that one will, maybe during driving it will happen. But yeah, so I'll just put everything back together. I know there's so much mess here right now, and that's it. So I hope you see my process on diagnosing this kind of problems, and yeah, let me know. And that's it. Thank you for watching.